They're calling him the first American Pope. But that's just the media doing what the media always does, flattening something sacred into a hashtag. Let's be clear. Saying he's the first American Pope is a facile point. It sounds like an insight, but it tells you nothing that matters. Yes, Pope Leo XIV was born in the United States, but that's not the story. The story is what he does, whether he leads the church with clarity, whether he spreads the gospel, and whether he turns the world's eyes back to Christ, not back to CNN. Calling him the first American Pope is facile for one simple reason. For 450 years, nearly every pope came from Italy. Not because Americans were too political or too conservative or too rich, but because the Italian hierarchy had a lock on the College of Cardinals. From the 1520s until 1978, it was Italy's game. The grip was so tight that Pope Clement VII, the one who faced down Henry VIII, was the first cousin of Pope Leo X, the Medici Pope before him. It wasn't a church, it was a dynasty. So of course a pope from anywhere else, the US, Canada, Austria, Russia, would be a first of some kind. And that's not profound, it's just math. Even the so-called African cardinals who were in the running this time, the media told us the MAGA Republicans would melt down if a black African became pope. Far from it. American conservatives were cheering them on, because African bishops have stood strong on doctrine and still defend family values. Race? Not a factor. Conservatives care about the content of the catechism, not the color of the cassock. But that nuance doesn't fit the media's narrative, so instead they repeat their favorite chant, first this, first that. First American, first African in 1,000 years. Well, guess what? A pope from Germany, France, or England would also be the first in 1,000 years because, again, almost every pope was Italian. The last Italian pope, John Paul I, died after just 33 days in 1978. Some joked it was a warning. Whether that's true or not, we haven't had an Italian pope since. Now we have Pope Leo XIV, an American, and the press wants to talk about his birthplace. But what they should be talking about is his politics. Woke, progressive politics in the pattern of Pope Francis, which we do not need. Because Jesus did care for the poor, but the poor in his day were widows and orphans with nothing. People begging for food on a street corner. Not people living under corrupt socialist regimes who can't afford the latest iPhone. When Jesus spoke of suffering, he wasn't talking about failed states and bureaucratic NGOs. Pope Francis said his mission was evangelization, and yet he spent more time apologizing for century-old Catholic schools in Canada, schools which were actual missions, than he did preaching the gospel to China or the Muslim world. When American Catholic bishops protested Trump's dismantling of USAID, they failed to mention that millions of those dollars went to the church's own administrative networks. It wasn't just aid for the poor, it was funding for bureaucracy. Bureaucracy that, frankly, many of us American Catholics already support through billions in donations. And we do that not for headlines or handouts, but to spread the gospel, which in turn, we believe, leads to prosperity with the accompanying moral order. Sadly, many suspect that an American was chosen as Pope because of the money, not because of the message. If that's true, it's a scandal, but we hope it's not. Because at the end of the day, a real Catholic doesn't care where the Pope was born. We care what he teaches. We care if he brings the world closer to Christ. We don't need a political Pope, we need a faithful one.